Episode 91, Breaking the Cycle of Procrastination, Part 1.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, embrace those of you who have successfully used the weekend to embrace your imperfection. Dear listeners worldwide, I think the US is soon gonna outweigh everyone with subscribers and listeners. So, if you're from another nation, make sure to subscribe and, kind of even out the more podcast savvy nations. Welcome to the 91st episode of the very best podcast in the world on the 1st of February of the year 2021. Is it? You kind of lose track, right? After being locked in and locked down and, all the locks, but whatever. So to start out February, I thought it would be a good idea to look at one of the things which is kind of like a byproduct of the Rona. And that's procrastination, because a lot of us are in home office and don't really, you kind of become slouchy, right? When you have a conference call, you don't necessarily bother putting on normal pants. You either stay in your boxer shorts or briefs or whatever and just put on a shirt and tie, because from your belly button downwards, the webcam doesn't really show, in the best case, and you just kind of sit there and move along and, with the hairdressers closed in a lot of countries and, the gym's closed, you kind of become slouchy, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, where's the peer pressure coming from, right? And if you don't necessarily get in touch with your peers, then don't bother. But procrastination goes much further, right? I mentioned the morale, and the morale essentially, if that is down, starts to bite at your, at your, at being eager of getting shit done and whatever, because a lot of victims of this crisis are starting to doubt pretty much everything, including the integrity of their workplace and so on and so forth. So, I read an interesting statistic that anywhere between 70 and 80% of children are suffering mentally and psychologically in a significant way from being locked in and locked down, not being able to socialize. And, for us grown-ups, it's a bit of a different story. But, still there's significant damage to the psyche by this thing. And procrastination, in any case, is one of them. So what we're going to look at today is the cycle of procrastination, because there is such a thing. And we're going to find ways to break free of that and then to start from the beginning more motivated to get shit done. I think that's the best way to put it in a few words. So this is going to be a 3-part series, this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So today we're going to be talking about why is there procrastination? Kind of like, is it a thing? Yeah, it is. And tomorrow we're going to look at solutions and results on, number one, solutions. How can we, attack? And then what are the results of attacking the procrastination beast kind of thing. So without further ado, let's get started, right? So number one, the number one reason basically for procrastination is the lack of authoritative pressure, right? And, this is not your boss necessarily breathing down your neck. It doesn't have to be that literal. But for me, for instance, as someone who pretty much always does things last second, I'm not even talking last minute. It started in school. I did my homework on the bus in the morning because I had more important things to do at night. So it's like shoving this mountain of work in front of you always, but that's what keeps me going, right? And that for me is less literally an authoritative pressure. I need to get things done. I know that, but I will do them at the last second. And I've become so good at it, that I've become this globally sought after experts when it comes to cybersecurity incidents, because, there's a pile of shit that you have to get rid of, and you need specialists who are able to work in situations and under a pressure like that, because you've got multiple stakeholders that are holding a gun to your head because you're charging obscene amounts of money to get the problem out of the way. Because, at the end of the day, every minute the production facility or whatever stands still, that's really money that they're willing to throw at you for solving the problem, in that after you solve the problem, the production facility or whatever it is at the end of the day is working again. So I'm used to working under severe amounts of pressure from multiple stakeholders and keeping my shit together. That's a more literal form of authoritative pressure, right? Whatever it is, at the end of the day, the lack thereof would essentially make anything you do unnecessary. Let me just give a more plastic example, right? We heat with wood predominantly because, we do have a central heating system, but the heat or the warmth that produces is less comfortable, it's moister, whatever, it feels less comfortable. And so, more often than not, twice a day, you have to walk out to the shed to get wood for the fireplace so that it gets warm or that it stays warm, and you have the fallback, but still, it's like, you do it even though it's shitty weather outside. You do walk to the shed, you do get wood, and, sometimes you'll wait until the rain is over, just to stack up on supplies, don't have to get wet while getting wood. But, it's this interesting pressure that can come from all sides. Now, I've never been, although I would have expected myself to be in the situation that I felt that it was too cumbersome to get wood, because the reward of having comfortable warmth versus, putting the heater on and having less comfortable warmth is, enough pressure, authoritative pressure for me, to kind of move on and go outside and get the wood, and that's a more, even less authoritative force. There's actually no one breathing down your neck except you standing in your own way of getting that done. So, maybe the result here, no, let's not get in front of ourselves. I'm going to discuss that tomorrow, right? So the next thing, number 2, is that the task in itself is not interesting enough. And this is so true for me. And if you reflect on yourself, you're going to figure out that that's a major part of yourself as well. If you have to do stupid shit, you're not going to do it, unless there's, of course, something pressuring you. But unless that's the case, that's, very difficult to do uninteresting tasks that, perhaps have become uninteresting because you've done them a billion times over. And, you just can't be bothered to get them done. And for me, that is motivating myself by stimulating my brain while doing shitty tasks. I mentioned the oven. Obviously, you have to, cut the wood and you have to take it apart and you have to put it in the shed and you have to let it dry for a year or two, depending on, how moist your summers are. But anyhow, if I'm doing shit like that or mowing the lawn or, cleaning the kitchen after cooking or whatever it is, it's very important to find a motivator for yourself. And for me, that's, stimulating my brain, learning, um, you know, regardless of how arbitrary the information is that I'm going to take in, it's about learning, right? It's about stimulating my brain, thinking about shit, and getting that into my head while doing mundane stuff. And that works great as a motivator to kind of disguise the fact that what I'm doing is not interesting at all. In fact, it's boring. And the same can be true for work, because due to the fact that the task is lame and more likely than not, you've done it, you don't really need to focus because you're not going to be prone to mistakes anymore because you've done it a billion times. So, listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video on the side is totally excusable so long as this helps to get yourself into the position where you're going to do the task distracted by something else. I think that's the point I'm trying to make there. The opposite is the case for number 3. When the task is too complicated, people will shy away from it, based on experience and research and this stuff that I've taken as reference. But can a task be too complicated? Now, I am, what used to be called a hacker. So it's like, give me a problem and I'll solve it. So for me, the task is never really too complicated to shy away from it. More the opposite is the case, as I just mentioned. It's not interesting enough. It's not challenging enough. And there are those people who say, nah, it's too complicated. I'm just going to not bother. And that's also true. But if that's the case, if that's your case, take the task apart, right? Deconstruct it. Take the time to deconstruct the task into smaller ones, because complexity, if it is too complicated, it essentially is too complex. But if you decomplexitize it, I don't know if there's such a word, and put it into smaller tasks, that might be a way out of your situation, right? So I don't know. Let's think about you're building a house, right? Just to take something insanely complex. And you just take the thing apart, brick by brick and beam by beam and whatever not. And then you're going to end up with a huge number of small tasks, and striking them off your to-do list is actually very rewarding. So, instead of having this big task, build house, with an unchecked box behind it, and it's going to take you a year or two, or you don't even get started, or you stop halfway, or whatever it is, if you put it up and saying, okay, first of all, I'm going to have to do a foundation, and for the foundation, I'm going to have to order, concrete and reinforcements and whatever. And these small tasks, ticking all of them off is very satisfying to a lot of people and very rewarding. So if the task at hand seems too complicated for yourself, and that's why you're procrastinating it away, try that. Deconstruct it. Deconstruct the huge task in complexity. Make it less complex by taking it apart into smaller tasks, and then try and take things from there. That's really helped a lot of people that I've worked with. The task, as for what are we at? Number 4. The task has low use. So yeah, there's tons of stuff that you do that can be interpreted as low use. And a very important thing in procrastination is the interpretation of a task at hand, right? So let's get back to the fireplace, right? It is low use, period. Because I could, I might as well turn the dial on the heater, and then it's warm and comfy too. But less comfy. It just takes the edge off, right? Still, however, I have tricked myself into believing that it is high use because number one, we're saving money because we own the forest that we get the trees from. And don't have to pay the gas that we don't own, that we have to buy. So there's the economic aspect. If you look closely, every task at hand has a use and a fairly high use, for you to take advantage of. So, that might have been a stupid example. It's like, I love to cook. And more often than not, I'll spend 2, sometimes 3, depending on the complexity of what I'm cooking, 4 hours in the kitchen, prepping everything and getting the meal together. And I do this almost on a daily basis. What's the use, right? Well, practically nothing. I might as well go out, grab a pizza, pop it in the oven, be done with, having seemingly healthy food at a seemingly reasonable price, which will satisfy my basic need of not being hungry anymore, right? But number one, cooking is for me very meditative. I know that a lot of you don't have the time, but and still, I do it. I don't necessarily have the time. I buy myself the time. Take it off my day elsewhere. So, number one, it's healthier. Period. I know the ingredients that go into the food quite well. I know that there are not zero to none, but there's a very minute chance that there is stuff in there that I oppose of in being in food that I don't want in my body. Right. And it just fucking tastes better. Get over it. If you put in the herbs and spices that you want to, right? Instead of getting a finished meal that somebody else has interpreted and maybe oversalted or, put too much pepper in it, or, there's a spice in it that kind of, that's up to you. If you're the cook, it's fucking up to you. Cooking in a high quality fashion has become for a lot of people a luxury. Not many people do it anymore. But it's worth it. And getting back to the issue, technically, if you look at it from that perspective, the use is rather low, spending that much time and energy into cooking. But it's worth it. You can attach a certain amount of value to it if you are, we're coming back to the awareness thing. If you make yourself aware of all the things attached to that task, things become really, really, really interesting and a very new perspective. The last one, but not least one that I figured out, the reason for procrastination is that the task at hand has low appreciation. And that kind of implies that you need outside appreciation to get something done. While if you really believe in the task that you're doing, you don't need anybody's appreciation but your own, right? It's your own satisfaction. Sorry. It's your own satisfaction that should be, paramount. Hey, fuck, I got the task done. And whatever suits your fancy, whatever it is, take a fucking to-do list on a sheet of paper, write down the tasks you want to do, and then tick them off once you got that done. There are a lot of people who need that to motivate themselves. And that's okay. Like I said, whatever suits your fancy. If it's your phone that you have all of your reminders in or whatever it is, again, regardless of what it is, as long as it helps getting you out of this cycle of procrastination, nobody fucking cares. Don't let yourself be ridiculed that you do the task list thing. because if it helps you, who is to look down upon you because you need a list to motivate you, right? That's nobody's fucking business except for yours, right? And I think that's where we're going to close today, because like I said, tomorrow we're going to go into solutions, and on Wednesday we're going to go into the results of what these solutions have produced. In that sense, if you know a procrastinator, the people who put the pro in procrastination, send them the link to this podcast, because while today we've analyzed nothing but why there is procrastination, we're going to get into the solution and the results aspect. So, anybody who who might need a little bit of motivation of getting out of this cycle of procrastination, send them a link to this episode. They're going to love you for it later on. Trust me. While at first you're like, boom, you're lazy, you're a procrastinator, really reflected people will actually later on say, oh, yeah, you were right. And good that you gave me this advice. And then everything's going to go north from there. If you haven't, and particularly since we're doing a series, do subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you prefer. We are on pretty much all of them. So if you go to theverybestpodcastintheworld.com, you'll see all of the available platforms that we're on. If we're missing your favorite platform, please email theverybestpodcastintheworld@gmail.com. Also email that address if you have feedback, criticism, or whatever it is at the end of the day, and then we'll take care of it. Also, if you want to share some love, send an email. There's a lot of people doing it, but every email of encouragement is highly appreciated. In that sense, I'm going to see you tomorrow when we're going to look at solutions to getting you out of the cycle of procrastination, or anyone else, a friend, maybe asking for a friend. And yeah, wish you a successful day. If you've had your successful day, have a good night, and we'll be back tomorrow with part 2 of breaking the cycle of procrastination. Peace out.